How long to turn flaming mountains
Dry as a bone.
into fertile soil?
Nice.
Green and gold lush mountains filled with chickens and fruit-bearing trees that make delicious juice.
非常好喝啊！12周年了。
12 years? How?
So welcome our audience. This is our bonus episode of Biz Focus. And for those of you who may not be that familiar with Biz Focus, it is a series that we reporters head to different parts of China to find out those amazing biz stories that are shaping China's economic landscape. And today we are doing something different. So we are inviting our reporters who just wrapped up shooting Biz Focus stories outside. We invite them to our studios to share some behind the scenes stories and also maybe some like details that you wanted to share in the video but didn't get a chance to shoot it. So today we have our guests today, Lincoln and Hongyu. Welcome.
Absolute pleasure. It's good to be able to do extra stuff because, as you know better than me, you leave so much on the cutting room floor, you shoot so much stuff. I like getting more than what you need because it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But it's nice to be able to use some extra stories like this.
Yeah, true. And you guys just came back from Changting in Fujian Province, right? Why did you choose to go to Changting?
Yeah, I think I will take that question because it's me who decided to go to Changting. So basically, before our departure, we kind of know we're going to report something about the environment, like protecting the environment. But to be honest, Changting wasn't our first choice. We got a list of locations to film on, like for example, Yunnan Province and also Inner Mongolia. And then eventually we just decide to go to someplace that is warm. Also,
Warm, especially very cold here, chilly here in Beijing, right?
Yeah, it's really cold here in Beijing, and I feel like the view there is perfect for filming because it's green, it's large, got large mountains, and also a lot of stories over there. So yeah, that's the reason why we decided to go to Changting eventually.
Great choice going to somewhere warm. I'm struggling a little bit in the Beijing winter. Fujian weather was sensational.
Cool. Is this your first time go to a flaming mountain in China? How does it feel?
No, it's definitely the only time I've been to a landscape like that. And I hope for the sake of the environment that I don't see too much of it around. I don't think I will because I think a lot of work's been done over a lot of years to fix that. But yeah, it was stark how different it was from the bare mountain that they'd left like that. And I'm pleased they did that to illustrate how much of a difference has been made. And it was quite stark.
And who you said is about the environmental protection topic. Could you guys briefly tell us audience what the story is about?
Well, from what I learned talking to various people around there who've lived there their whole lives, and other people who've been there more recently, and from studying the history about that part of the world, I'd assumed that a lot of the population increases and a lot of the deforestation had happened more recently. But this is waves of migration that have happened from a century ago or more, from conflicts and climate pressures pushing people to that part of China. And at that stage of history, I suppose, nowhere in the world really was looking seriously at environmentalism. People were often trying to survive, and through economic imperatives and trying to survive, industrialization, not so much way back then, but in terms of increasing agriculture, using wood for fuel just to stay warm in winters, even though the Fujian winters can be quite mild compared to here. I mean, back in the day, the structures wouldn't have been up to it. To build structures to increase land for grazing, for farming. So they depleted the resources they had there a long time ago. And then, of course, down in southern China, which we didn't quite experience too much, but when the rains come and you haven't got the trees and you haven't got the root structures, those rains will wash the soil away. And then when you lose the soil, then how do you get the trees back? And it's a vicious cycle of depleting the natural environment. So that had happened over generations. But what was shocking to me, or pleasantly surprising, was how quickly that could be repaired.
Yes, true. And also, because I've never been to a flaming mountain before, could you describe to us what's the difference between when you first see, oh wow, a flaming mountain and then a normal mountain?
It's the red soil, I suppose.
Yeah. You can tell the difference from the appearance, and also the soil over there. They are basically sands only. They're not like the normal kind of soil where you have leaves, you have fungus. yeah, kind of like that. And the locals told me that during summertime, the temperature can go as high as 70 Celsius degree.
Wow, 70.
Yeah, 70.
Then
So it can,
how do they survive there, or just?
I think the surface temperature on the,
Yeah.
I mean, quite gravelly as well. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there's the red dirt, but often if you picked up the soil, it was sandy, gravelly almost. I mean, it's pretty much down to bare rocks. So I guess that gives it a very bright, reflective surface as well. And that's just holding so much heat. Could probably cook an egg on it.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
Mr.
You
US
can,
said.
yeah.
So yeah, that's proper hot stuff. I mean, it's turning what was a forest into a desert. It's man-made desert.
Yes, true. And also, I watched the video. You compared the like two different types of soil there, and also you guys talked about how they restore the hills is through like the grass and trees. And are there some like details? What are some innovative measures that they help restore the hills?
It's a process, I suppose, and what I liked asking a lot about, and we didn't quite get to fit into the finished piece, is the real specifics of how they selected certain species of trees and grass and how to do it. I remember asking, what did you try that didn't work? And there was, I think, an Australian tree they tried to put there that didn't work out. I mean, they through scientific method and trial and error, found which plants, which trees, which grasses, which ground cover worked and which took on and which didn't. And then you refine your technique, and then they've got it down to, you know, something that is working. And I'm sure they're still working on it now. You can keep fine tuning further and further and further. So it started with getting the base big trees up, and they were going with a lot of pines. They're quite hardy. And once you set that up, you can have some smaller trees, which I can't remember exactly, the thinner ones that were sitting sub canopy. And then the ground cover just kind of filled in by itself. And they had different species of grass they'd brought in. Yeah, it was impressive to see that it's not just a case of finding a heap of trees and planting them and then nature will do its thing. I'm sure it will eventually, but it's much more scientific than that in terms of figuring out the precise species of tree and plants that were going to be most successful in that climate.
Yeah, it must be very difficult for them to find which types of trees or grass that can be planted there, right?
Yeah, can I add more details into this? So I remember if you look at the videos, what they have right now is called Chinese red pine trees.
Yes.
So basically the leaves are like needles because they
Yes.
don't need a lot of
Teeny
moisture.
tiny.
Yeah, teeny tiny needles. But now they are planting something called broadleaf trees. So instead, normally for trees, their leaves fall in autumn season. But for the specific kind of species trees that they select, their leaves are for every single season. So that means more leaves are falling into the ground. So that means more nutritious and more fertilized into the ground, so it can benefit the whole ecosystem more. So I think they are selecting different species of trees in more scientifically. I mean, they've tried different kinds, failed multiple times, but throughout the years, throughout decades, they are finally finding the right way, right path over there.
Yeah, maybe next time when we come back there, they'll
Yeah.
find like different species of trees growing there. And also, especially now, maybe with the help of AI developing so rapidly, who can, just imagine maybe next time. And also, Lincoln, I see you so happy catching those chickens.
Well,
those
I didn't
Hetian
catch
chicken.
them, but
Oh, you
still,
didn't? Oh, so you failed.
I
That
would've
zero is
been-
literally a zero, right?
I would have been very happy if I did catch one, but I failed the team,
Oh,
unfortunately.
is it your first time catching chicken?
No, I've tried to catch chickens before when I was much younger. Where I grew up in Australia was quite a rural part of the country. So, yeah, my grandparents had some chickens. From memory, I feel like I used to catch them. Maybe they're slower chickens in Australia, I don't know. Or maybe I've got a lot slower. Now, a couple months ago, I ruptured my Achilles tendon playing rugby. So I'm not using that as an excuse, but it's a reason why
Yeah, already did a very great job.
I'm not at my 100% capacity in terms of speed and agility at the moment. But no, the chickens were quite fast. That was just a good, fun thing to do. And I had to test myself out. I think when the farmer was very open to it, it's not like I was harassing his chickens. He was happy for me to try. I think
There were no any chicken there, right? Like before when they restored the hills. What's the situation there?
You've lost some background there. That's all right. I don't think we
lost
need
some-
that entirely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Something
fine.
fell off.
That's
Yeah.
your bookmark for you for later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story we got from another farmer there, the lady who also started out with the homestead.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a exactly historically accurate anecdote, but apparently they were when the lost the forests, and they obviously lost a lot of animals, and you lose your biodiversity.
So
and we're losing our background as well.
when we finish the whole program, everything we just.
That one's. I'm going to hold this
Oh,
one so it doesn't come down
Yeah, a
anymore.
good
I'll
blessing
stick it
to
on
our
from here.
audience. So it says 平安喜乐, wish you safe and happy and healthy in 2025.
Bless
yeah.
up.
Yeah, so let's continue our story.
So the chicken anecdote was that they had the chickens, and then the rains came down, and the rains would wash the chickens into the river. And then, unfortunately, most chickens can't swim. But these Hetian chickens, they're so resilient, they're so clever that they taught themselves how to swim. And it was a parable and a fable of how the people have endured hardship, and they've taught themselves to swim in under
Did they
duress.
train those chickens how to swim, or they just learn it by themselves?
I think these days they might be giving them a chance to train more and more, but I think the chickens just figured it out themselves.
Wow.
I mean, survival is a pretty good necessity.
Yeah, that's
to get
really
yourself
amazing.
out. But they are very strong. They're very tough. I can attest to that, and pretty tasty as well.
Yeah. Well, as a person from Guangdong province, I had to say that they must taste good because they swim, right? Good muscle. Yeah. So is the town famous for Hetian chicken? What's the difference between like Hetian chicken and other types of chicken?
I think Hetian chicken
Got any
is a
stories?
local specialty over there. I mean, we had a lot of Hetian chickens over there.
I think every day.
Yeah, every
almost.
day. Yeah, I have to say that the texture of Hetian chicken is extremely chewy because I feel like they are free-range chicken and also they can swim, so they exercise a lot.
Yeah.
Quite
so
sinewy and strong. I mean, with that speed comes a little bit, the muscles are a bit tight and fast twitch and high performance, and maybe that doesn't translate into a very tender chook, but it was very cooked nicely. The flavor-wise, and I'm sure next time
we want to go try it. And these are all thanks to their good environmental protection measures. So in the video, you guys talked about like their income increased tenfold in the last like a decade. So what's the major difference between lives back then and now? Did you guys hear any stories from the local
most telling
villagers?
anecdote, I suppose, was from one of the farmers we spoke to, saying that 10 years ago, most people couldn't afford to eat pork, and they were eating chicken or perhaps whatever else is available or affordable. And now it's a much more routine meal, where once upon a time was probably just special feasts and special occasions, whereas now that access to protein is a pretty important indicator of increasing in wealth and income disparity, and that's a good thing to hear. I think that's nice for people to have more income, gives people more options.
Yeah, it's true. You can see their happy faces.
Yeah, and also from the head of the village, he told us that before they're only able to grow one season rice, and now they can grow double season because the land is more fertilized than before, and also there are more variety of vegetables over there. We have taros, we have waxberries, we have grapefruits, etc., etc. So there are so many more variety of stuff for people to choose to eat. So in terms of food-wise, I think people's life have been improved a lot.
Yeah, and also these are all the different sectors that they can do business with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose when you meet your daily requirements of being able to feed yourself, then anything excess can go to market, and then that can only continue to breed more income achievements.
Yeah, it's true. And it took them 12 years. Did they expect it to be that long or even longer than that?
The 12 years was from when we went to see the Flaming Mountains and we crossed the road into a reforested area. And it was so significantly noticeable how the atmosphere changed. The air was crisper. I mean, it smelt like life. You could smell more humid underneath the canopy. It was just holding onto more moisture.
Yeah, you said you can squeeze the water from the
Yeah,
soil,
I felt like if I got enough there, maybe I was a bit stronger, I could have got a couple of drops out. But it was really, really noticeably cooler. I mean, it was on the mountain, and we were climbing up quite a steep incline as well. So we were working hard and getting a sweat on out in the sun. I mean, it was, for Fujian winter time, it was still, a very mild day, probably in the low 20s Celsius. But doing all that work, getting a little bit of a sheen up, getting a sweat on, across the road, it was cool. It was nice and very pleasant. Could have had a nap on the leaf litter if we didn't have so much work to do. But that was nice to experience. But it was impressive how much can be achieved in just 12 years.
Yeah.
I'd assumed, I mean, not being a tree expert or not being an ecological expert, I don't really know how long it takes for that amount of tree growth to occur, but to see trees that were very well established, to see the ground cover so well established, I would assume that would have taken 2 decades, and that was only all done in 12 years, which is impressive.
Yes, it's really a great works, remarkable works. And also at the end of video, I see you so you say to the video that like you've met many wise people. And in the video there are 2 interviewees, right? So I bet that there must be many other people that you guys would talk to. So are there any stories that really impressed you?
Well, I got to spend lots of time with Hong Yu. Hong Yu's very wise. So
The translator too, right?
Yeah, incredibly wise and helpful in many ways. So there's one that was probably most important to me. But beyond that, we also got some...
Thank you for that.
But so,
Much appreciated.
so we meet some really cool people. I mean, I like, as Hong Yu can attest as well, I think I spoke to everyone who was around us at any time.
In Chinese or in English?
I try to practice my
in
Chinese.
Oh.
I mean, we didn't get to have a big enough conversation for me to ascertain exactly how wise they are, but they were perhaps unwise in talking to me. I don't know, but they were very nice people around. It was enjoyable to see how open and willing people of Fujian were just to talk to a random foreigner. Not that we're having very in-depth discussions about things, but it was just nice to chat to people. This, being able to pay compliments to people is a nice thing, and be able to get some back is always nice. But that was very cool. No, Mr. Yue, in terms of the ecological expert, I think I learnt so much from him in terms of how this can be done. The farmers as well, they were impressive people in terms of what they've been able to do environmentally, but financially as well, for themselves and for their workers and for the people around. No, overall it was an impressive trip.
Yeah. And what about you, Hong Yu?
Yeah, I feel like I want to give it more like a historical perspective, because the ecologist, Mr. Yue, told me that the history of Changting's land erosion can be traced all the way back to Tang Dynasty. So that's more than 1,000 years ago. So if you compare to 1,000 years and the 12 years, it's such a short period of time. So that means it's a lot of efforts by the locals and farmers. So we don't have a lot of chance to talk to the local farmers over there, but I bet they've put much efforts into protecting the environment over there. So that's really wise. So it's like the collective of efforts of every single person over there in Changting Province. So yeah, that's what I feel like. Every single person can be a wise person.
Healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Yeah.
Yes, true. Just like here, 平安喜乐.
Right. Represent. It's on theme.
True. And before we go, if you let you guys share one biggest takeaway from doing this report, what would that be?
I feel like it's never too late to start making a move.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, or you bit by bit, every single day you can do a little thing, but still, if you add them all together, it can be a big achievement.
Yeah, just like you said, 12 years in a long history is just a small period of time. For like now we are in our 30s, 40s, 50s, but if you are like in your whole life, this is just a small period. So it's just never too late to get started.
Yeah, similar to that, my takeaway would be not to say that what they've done there is easy. I mean, it takes a lot of work. It's a lot of scientific, agricultural innovation, all of those things coming together. But it is relatively easy to do from a very low base. Even if you don't have the scientific or ecological knowledge, if you want to repair and reforest some land, it is as simple as regenerating and planting trees and holding onto some moisture and taking simple steps. So it's, my takeaway from that whole trip, I was so surprised, pleasantly surprised at how quickly things had rebounded and how simple it was. Really.
Yes, true. There are many simple things that we can do. Just like at the end of the video, you are in this recording studio, right? Like what we can do to offset the carbon emissions that we produced. Yeah, there are so many simple things that we can do and to better protect our environment. And maybe next time when we go back there, we can see an even greener space there. So that's pretty much it for our first episode, bonus episode of Biz Focus. And feel free to comment below what would you like to know, maybe in our next episode, or any stories that you want to ask us about. Okay? Yeah. See you guys next time. Bye.